a very warm welcome to all of you watching us from wherever you are around the world, and welcome to the 2020 TV Key Facts show. Let me first of all introduce myself. My name is Louise Ekland and I'm a journalist working on French television here in France, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you today for this 27th edition of the International Study of Total Video Consumption Trends. Over the next 90 minutes, our mission is to give you an inspiring overview of the challenges and, of course, the opportunities that the media world is actually facing today. Whether it be in live, link-up or video interviews, we've got experts and actors from all the different markets coming to us live from across the globe. They will be giving us, of course, their vision on how the crisis accelerated the video landscape transformation and impacts content, of course, and advertising production. Daniel Bischoff, Chief Marketing and Operations Officer, will be giving us the big picture today. Jean-Baptiste Maudiot will be putting things into perspective through the show with the essential facts and figures. We also have the advertisers' point of view later on in the show with Ben Jankowski from MasterCard. Of course, this show is really just a taster, an appetizer to whet your appetite. You can find the complete study in the magazine that you will be receiving shortly and on our TV Key Facts platform. So now, to launch this 2020 edition, I would like to warmly welcome Stéphane Courrouble, CEO of RTL Ad Connect, live from Luxembourg. And here he is, Stéphane. Really lovely to see you. First question, and it's a question that has a really deep meaning today. How are you?
Well, hi, Louise, and thank you so much first for your fantastic opening speech. This is indeed a great day for us today with the launch of the 27th edition of our Total Video Key Facts. And I wish I could have joined you in this very nice studio in Paris, but due to the general restrictions across Europe, we have to adapt, and I'm speaking from you out of the RTL Group headquarters in Luxembourg. I'm also delighted to have hundreds of people connected to us today from around the world, in Europe, in the US, and in Asia. So you just asked me about how we are. Yeah. Well, first and personally, I'm very well, and I'm back on very good shape after just being affected by COVID a few days ago. And I can confirm I overcome the virus. What I can also be confident with is the fact that our industry will overcome and will survive this pandemic. And you will see it clearly during the presentation today. COVID has hit the industry very hard, just like everyone else, by the way. But our total video industry has proven to be extremely resilient and is on its way to definitely bounce back. Though, and that's a reality, the pandemic is not over. We will have to live with it, but we are learning to deal with it.
So it's great news that you're feeling much better, and thanks for that opening message of hope, Stéphane. I have to tell you something. When I first met your teams, I was quite impressed and quite surprised. They were kind of like researchers and data scientists more than a sales force, dealing with a great amount of data. And I believe this is the RTL Ad Connect approach. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. And we have definitely plenty of talents inside the house, but I can definitely confirm that RTL Ad Connect is a total video sales house, and our priority is to generate additional revenues for our media partners, no doubt about this. But the way we see our business is rather smart selling rather than short-term hard selling. And what we love, I think, about our job, and I think I speak on behalf of the whole RTL Ad Connect team here, is we built a long-term qualitative relationship with our clients and really think about what we can do and bring them in terms of added value, expertise, insights, and tools. Our media world has never been so complex to navigate, and we strive to simplify the whole marketing journey for our clients.
Mm-hmm. So we're here today, Stéphane, to explore the TV Key Facts report. Can you tell us what TV actually means for you?
Yeah, sure. A few years ago, RTL, our group, decided to revamp the acronym TV, initially standing for television, and now into total video. Because we think that accessing content is not done exclusively through the big screen anymore or in a linear mode. Content is now accessible through different shapes and form, long form, short form, via different devices, on demand or live. And this evolution that we have been observing for the last decade now has dramatically accelerated over the last few years and even further during the pandemic. You will see today some facts, some figures that relate to this evolution, and it's very important for us publishers to anticipate those trends and behaviors from our consumers. It's a very logical reason now to talk about total video rather than just talking about television.
Let's now, if you don't mind, take a look back over this very complicated year. What have been your observations, Stefan?
Well, one of the main trends for me is that no matter how disrupted and changed our lives and our society might be today due to COVID, but TV is always there and will be for the years to come. The pandemic pushed people to look for familiar markers to recreate routines. And TV was one of those markers during the day, a reliable source of trusted news, content allowing you to escape those difficult times, but also sometimes comforting entertainment, and etc.
So that's for the observations, of course, but what about the impact on the industry and on the clients, Stefan?
Well, as I said earlier, I think the industry is on its way to bounce back. For sure, some advertisers, some sectors have been hit more by the pandemic than others. And for sure, everyone, especially during the second quarter of this year, was under extreme pressure. But some clients, some advertisers responded in extraordinary ways, meaning keeping their campaigns at a very high level, even going under difficult circumstances. For others, after a period of mute, they decided to advertise again as soon as restrictions were lifted, especially after summer. But when I look at the latest updates on the vaccine research from last week and this week, by the way, I'm pretty optimistic about the future, and there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
I'm definitely with you on that one. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just going to get this magazine here because I believe the cover is extremely powerful here. Look at this image here. And I was just wondering if you could tell us why you actually chose it, Stefan.
Yes, as you can see behind me, around you on this magazine, we see faces around us, and we wanted to grab immediately the reader's attention at first glance. Today, in this presentation, we will speak a lot about audiences across the world and about how to reach and engage with the consumers. We tried throughout the magazine to represent the universality and the diversity of audiences across the world through a variety of portraits and pictures. And for the cover, this specific cover, we chose a close-up on a human face covered with paint and staring straight into the eyes with an open, very intense glare, full of attention, which we thought was a strong pull of how 2020 has been, upfront and very personal. Throughout the crisis, the media advertising industry showed strength, as I said, resilience and creativity. And in this new edition of the TV Key Facts, we really wanted to represent the essential role of media and underline the fact that TV truly was a window to the world during this challenging year.
So thank you so much, Stefan, and we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. And now let's start with the first chapter of this show. And to do that, I'd like to welcome Daniel Bischoff, CMOO at RTL AdConnect. He's coming to us live from Germany, and he's going to introduce the first part of this report. And here he is. Daniel is with us. First of all, Daniel, really lovely to see you. Tell us how you're doing.
Hi, Louise. Hi, everybody. I'm great, actually. This is a super nice total video setup, and I'm looking forward to introducing the first part of the TV Key Facts presentation.
Good news. So we are together today for this 27th edition of TV Key Facts. It means that there have been 26 other editions. And what makes this edition different, Danielle?
Well, if you ask me personally, I think almost everything is different this year, right? Including our TV Key Facts presentation. This doesn't feel like a usual year of TV Key Facts presentation where we would go around, present the facts live to an audience, but it feels rather like a Eurovision Song Contest. So I truly hope that we will gather the 12 points at the end of the evening. But more seriously, our industry has been disrupted extensively this year. One could even say 2020 is really a black swan year. Have you ever seen a black swan, Louise?
Well, I've definitely seen Natalie Portman going a bit crazy at the ballet, but I don't think I've ever seen a black swan. And do they really exist?
I can confirm they exist. But funny enough, in the past, people didn't know they exist. So whenever they said a black swan event or a black swan thing, they meant something that cannot happen, that doesn't exist. But in 1697, some Dutch guys wandered around Western Australia and actually found a black swan. So since then, we take the term of black swan to describe events that are highly improbable, but they still exist. Hence, our industry is in this black swan year, in this black swan situation. And the billion-dollar questions at the moment that advertisers have are, first of all, how long will it last? And secondly, what do I need to do during this black swan year? Well, unfortunately, I'm not a fortune teller, although I try to tell that to my kids, but I cannot answer the first question. I don't know how long it will last, but what I can tell you is how advertisers should behave. And that's exactly what we're going to take a look at in this year's presentation. We're looking at the facts, like in the 26 editions before, but added some current data and facts from 2020 to it, which we usually don't do. And we're going to look at three distinct chapters in this presentation today. First, we're going to look at the current impact, the immediate impact of the pandemic on our ecosystem, on our industry. Secondly, we're going to look at how advertisers should behave, what they should take into consideration when making investment decisions in this strange time. And third, but not last, we're going to look at the epicenter of our business, which is the consumer, and that we need to understand the consumer even better this year. So with no further philosophical intro anymore, let's deal with the real question at hand, Louise. What the fact just happened?
That is a really good question and a great play on words, as it were, as well. Thank you, Danielle. We'll be back to see you a little bit later on in the show, of course. I'm going to head over now to see Jean-Baptiste Maudiot. He's been on stage since the beginning. The light is on you now, Jean-Baptiste. It's really good to see you, first of all. You are head of marketing at RTL Ad Connect, but also Mr. Facts and Figures. That's what your colleagues call you. So what was the factual reality of the video ecosystem during this COVID crisis?
Yes, hello Louise, very happy to be there. I'm the lucky winner being on stage when everyone is away.
That's right.
And yes, let's talk about the factual reality and let's tell everyone what the fact is this video ecosystem we are talking about since the beginning. And we will start with some facts and figures about the video consumption to understand what we are talking about when we mean total video ecosystem. It's made of several things, and the first one is, of course, television. Television is the legacy of our video consumption, and it still makes most of our consumption. And then there are some new emerging forms of video that we are consuming, online video, whether it's long form, what we call video on demand, or whether it's something we consume on a social platform. I'm thinking about YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, what we call social video. So that's the first thing. That's the first thing I mentioned when I'm talking about the total video ecosystem. And the second thing is that we have to care about the local specificities of this video consumption because it's not the same country to country, and even within like a region like Europe, it's very, very different country to country. I would say in continental Europe, Italy, Spain, Germany, France, we are quite conservative. We still watch most of our video live on television, 80 to 90%. Whereas in a more Anglo-Saxon market, well, the consumer will spend less time on TV and much more time on video on demand and much more time on social video. So that's the first takeaway about the total video ecosystem. If we look a bit further into these local specificities and on a much larger scale, on a worldwide scale, you see that the TV consumption on average in the world is 2 hours, 48 minutes. But that doesn't mean that everyone in the world will consume this much television. Most of the countries are actually consuming much more. North Americans, South Americans, Europeans, they spend about 3 hours, 40 minutes in front of TV. That's way higher. Whereas the most populated region, Asia, is consuming much less, about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So that's really what we have to know about the local specificities. But what I want to do now is going back to the black swan in the living room, because that's really what we want to talk about right now. The video consumption in 2020 has exploded. And compared to the forecast we had before the COVID, it's way more. It's up 3, 5, even 9 or 14% in some countries. We will watch this year, depending if we are in China, in Germany, or in the United States, from 4 hours to 6 hours of total video. So the COVID impacted very positively the total video audience in 2020.
Okay, I'm hearing you. So let's dig a little bit deeper now and see how this is reflected in the fragmented reality of video consumption. Which components of this total video ecosystem were most affected by the COVID crisis?
Well, again, Louise, I will start with what makes the most of our video consumption, television. And let's talk about the immediate impact. It was huge. At the end of March, when we started the lockdown, the TV consumption jumped by 81 minutes in the largest European countries. It's 1 hour, 20 minutes. And then it stayed very high until the end of the lockdown, but even during the summer, it was higher than last year. And now that we are seeing some new lockdown measures in October and November, we clearly see at the end of the curve a clear rebound of this television consumption. So that's the first takeaway. And then we will jump to, well, what happened to online video beyond the pure television? Well, the situation before the lockdown was that the main screen that we were going to consume online video was the mobile screen, because it was so convenient. High-speed networks, we can consume on the go, in the public transport. It was all about mobility. Well, guess what? In 2020, mobility is not a thing anymore.
No.
It doesn't exist. It's off. So where are we going to consume this online video? Well, we are in our living room and we just light up our TV. But instead of watching traditional linear TV, we also watch some other kinds online video on our connected TV. And nowadays, connected TV is the #1 go-to screen for online video.
Okay, so I get it. If we go beyond the pure stay-at-home behavior linked to lockdown, what is actually pushing these figures up, Jean-Baptiste?
Yes, there's a long-term trend behind this sudden uplift in connected TV consumption. And it's VOD, subscription VOD. And there's an explosion in both demand of subscription VOD and offer of subscription VOD. We are talking about giants like Netflix, Prime Video, that were super successful already in the years before. But 2020 was definitely a year that pushed their figures very high. We are expecting, compared to the initial forecast, plus 40 million subscribers to SVOD in 2020. And especially with players like Disney+, big behemoth, entering the market. So more demand, more offer, more SVOD watched on connected TV. But on the other end, the fact that the people have to subscribe to more and more SVOD services to get more content is draining the money from their pockets. And the more they have to subscribe, the more they are welcoming some new kind of services which offer advertising and free content, what we call AVOD. And in the coming years, we will see more and more AVOD players entering the market and challenging the Netflix and Amazon Prime of the world. These guys will be called Pluto TV, Peacock, Tubi, Crackle. That's the future of VOD in the market. Mm-hmm. And to close the loop about our video consumption, let's watch the third bucket, the so-called social video that we are consuming on the social networks. If you look at the top 10 properties offering this kind of short extracts, short videos, and you look at the consumption between February and September 2020, we see an uplift of nearly 60% of the time we spent with this kind of social video.
And what are we watching on social networks?
Well, initially, what made the history of this platform was video gaming or beauty tutorials from influencers, but it's no longer the case. What pushes the consumption up is real media content, either from traditional media, like television, or social native media that push directly their content onto Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Okay. Thanks very much, Jean-Baptiste. We'll be back to you in a little while, of course. I think we're obviously all aware that we're not done with the impact of the pandemic. Stefan and Danielle were very clear earlier. We're going to have to live with it, and we should learn to deal with it, of course, on a daily basis. So how can you kind of forecast in uncertain times? To answer this question, let's head now live to Portland to get some insight from a major actor in the industry. He's the Global President Business Intelligence at Group M, the world's leading media investment company. And from what I understand as well, he's also a true expert when it comes to data analysis. And there he is. Brian Weiser is with us. Good morning. It's the morning for you. It's the evening for us. So we're all over the world here. Thank you very much for being with us live from Portland. First of all, simple question. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Pretty tired, 2020 and all, but also just always so much to do. And we're just in the process of finishing up our big flagship publication this year, next year. So lots to go on around here.
Okay, yeah, it's a bit of a tiring year for everybody, but we're getting through it, we're driving through it. First of all, we need a bit of insight from you, Brian. Looking at the pandemic and of course the political changes in the US, what are your predictions or maybe your feelings, intuitions for 2021?
Well, it's interesting. We started forecasting back in around March or April that, it feels like middle 2021 seems like a good time for normalcy to return. And that prediction's pretty well playing out. I think that's still the right way to think about things. So when we think about 2021, we think about continuing to evolve and adapt in a world of partial lockdowns or other forms of social restrictions, and then a deep trough to recover from on the second quarter, followed by hopefully something resembling normalcy and, certainly return to the way things might have been, at least in part. I should clarify, parts of the world kind of are normal-ish now, right? China, certainly Singapore seems okay, South Korea seems okay, but when we look at Western Europe and the United States, we're really looking forward to something like normalcy next year.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. Yes, of course, we are looking forward to that. There is hope. How will advertisers be affected by the economic situation, and what will be the capacity of consumers to spend, Brian?
Yeah, well, the really interesting thing is that unlike normal downturns, advertisers are able to see an end. They know that this is temporary, or at least they believe it is. And that's the really fortunate thing here. We have avoided a proper financial crisis so far.
Yeah.
And because of that, consumers, for the most part, are able to spend money, and advertisers are able to market to them. It is important to keep in mind, though, that the shape of this recovery, it looks a lot more like a K than a V or something else. And the K means that not everyone's going to do well. A lot of people are going to really suffer. And a lot of companies are going to suffer too, in a way that is far worse than the average.
When we think about this crisis, we sort of, our minds step back to 2008 and the crisis that we all went through at that time. Can we draw a parallel?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a good starting point. And I think that, again, when we look at what happened then, it was a financial crisis that kicked off an economic crisis. And that kicked off economic weakness and all sorts of bad things for the broader economy. This was different because there was never a liquidity issue. Banks were never a threat of going away. Mm-hmm. The economy didn't entirely grind to a halt. We all slowed our own activity down voluntarily. And that was very different. In this case, people pause, and then normalcy's kind of returned in different ways for most of the population. And that's a really different thing because, again, we could all kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel returning eventually.
What kind of lessons can we maybe learn from the crisis in 2008 that will be applicable to this crisis today? And what, maybe to finish off, what kind of advice would you give to advertisers today, Brian?
Yeah, well, I think certainly observations then as now is that if you have access to capital, this is the best time to invest in change, to invest in what your business should look like for the next decade and beyond. It's sometimes important to look at the next quarter or the next half a year, but I think that certainly, I'm a former securities analyst and banker, and I know that most of Wall Street or the city want to look at companies through a long-term lens if they're given a reason to believe in the long term. And so if you're a marketer, I think focusing on the long term and investing against it and investing against the change that needs to happen to make whatever your long-term vision is a reality, that is the thing to do now. And what happens in the short term, it's not going to be very good on an absolute basis. We're not going to be at 2019 levels anytime soon, but that's okay, especially if you're looking towards 2029.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, of course. That was really great. Daniel, I'd like to hear from you on this subject, of course. From what I can gather, this is really not the time for brands to scale back communication investments.
Exactly, Louise. I think we should just take Brian's word and just wrap the show up. Perfectly said. There's nothing else to say. No, but more seriously, in a couple of other longer words, as Brian pointed out, we're in a big dip at the moment. The whole industry is on a pause mode, and we're waiting for that signal that things go back to normal. But we all know that they will go back to normal. In any way, we know also that this dip will not last forever. But we are in a bit of a, let's say, shithole at the moment, and we need to get out of it. So the question is, what the fact do you do as an advertiser now, right, in this kind of situation? Well, honestly, it feels a bit like you're standing at a traffic light, right, waiting, endless waiting for, starting again. So what do you do, Louise, at a traffic light, usually?
Well, I wait, otherwise I would dive across the road, but I would also check my emails maybe and have a little look on social media.
Exactly. You would at least not go away, right? You would be there, you would stay present, you would wait until you can actually start again. And that's a bit the situation our advertisers and our ecosystem is in at the moment, right? We're all waiting to start again. Yet, coming back to that billion-dollar question, how long will it take to jump to green again, right? That's something which is, again, impossible for us to know because we're not fortune tellers. We cannot look into the future, right? But there are ways of dealing with a situation like this. And it's very simple. It's what you tell your kids every day, day in and day out. Go back to school, learn the basics, right? And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to look back at the basics. And again, like in school, if you go somewhere and to learn something, you have to listen to smart people. So don't listen to me, listen to this handsome guy on the screen called Mark Ritson, a professor from down under, Black Swan country, who just recently put together his thoughts in an actor presentation about how this crisis evolves and what advertisers should do. And basically, it's all about looking backwards, not looking forward, looking at how brands behaved during other comparable crises, other comparable Black Swan years, and try to learn from that. And if you go back a bit in time, what you can see is you can see the likes of Kellogg's during the Great Recession. You can see the likes of Toyota during the oil crisis, or more recently, you can see Sainsbury during the financial crisis. They all have something in common. They stayed on air. They didn't back out, and they got rewarded afterwards with a growth in share of market. Because the equation is pretty simple. If you manage, as Brian pointed out, to have the capital to stay on air whilst your competition drops out, you gain automatically share of voice. If you manage to gain share of voice, it will translate automatically into share of market. So if you manage to retain your investments in, if you stay about 10 points above the share of voice of the others, it will translate into about 1 point share of market afterwards. It's what Ritson calls the excess share of voice. It means staying on top of the competition. And you would argue this is like old time say, right? All of the examples I've given you are from the past. But we do have a recent one, which is pretty good. Procter & Gamble, the world's biggest advertiser, exactly took this strategy during the pandemic. They stayed on air, they stayed in the media. And they didn't have their marketing guy telling this to the world. They had their CFO guy telling it to the analysts, saying that this is the strategy and it's not a time to go off air. Imagine it's the guy sitting on the money, usually cutting the money, the guy who's probably quoting Gordon Gekko in every other meeting. You know, it's all about the bucks, kid. The rest is conversation. That guy is defending this kind of strategy. It's amazing. So full circle now, Louise. Exactly. It's not time to go dark. It's time to go back to you in the studio with Jean-Baptiste to see what do we actually have to learn or relearn about those successful advertiser strategies.
Thank you so much, Danielle. We'll be back to see you a little bit later on. So you heard our experts, of course. First, you need to maintain your communication investment. And secondly, you need to consider the total video landscape for your content. But when it comes to total video, how can you measure the impact of your campaigns? Let's get some insight straight away with Stefan Lorca, CEO of World Federation of Advertisers. Here we are.
I think we value the quality of those media-centric measurement systems which have been established over decades. They have created trust in the market and among brand owners, so we're recognizing that. However, brand owners have an urgent need to create tools which we call cross-media measurement tools, which allows to have a cross-media, cross-platform vision of the consumer. What we're asking for, and you may have seen the WFA blueprint for cross-media measurement. What we're asking for is from an advertiser perspective, we call it the advertiser North Star, is basically 4 principles. One is we want full lifecycle management. So we want data for planning, reporting, and optimization stages. We want continuous measurement, so tagless and always-on data capture. We want a comprehensive system that covers TV and digital, by the way, not only video. And we want this to be happening in a manner that is accountable for brand owners. And so there are 2 pilot projects which will be launched in 2021. One is going to be in the UK. It's called Project Origin. It's being led by our association ISBA in partnership with a number of agencies, broadcasters and platforms. And the other one is in the US. It's led by our association in the US, ANA, and which also involves both broadcasters and platforms. It will in the end reflect the points of view of the industry stakeholders. And to your point, that is indispensable. So this is why it's so important to have broadcasters and platforms and brand owners and agencies involved in that work. We have a lot of interest also from countries in Europe, in Asia, in order to be implementing that type of initiatives. The partnerships will happen at the local level. That's where we see the equivalent of jigs coming together and drive those projects.
So thank you so much to Stefan Lorca for sharing his thoughts with us today. Jean-Baptiste, so what are the unified measurement challenges so far? Tell us.
So I think Stefan Lorca mentioned it, and we saw it in the first part, like the media consumption is evolving at the speed of light. It's disruption after disruption, so it's so hard to follow. And back to Stefan Lorca again, yes, the marketers, they need facts, because why? well, they need to face their CEO, asking them where the advertising money is going. Yeah, are they throwing it by the window? No, they need to prove what audience they are reaching. So there are several ways we can measure this total video world as it's evolving. The first is to evolve, let's say, the traditional methodology of measuring television, to get to evolve the gold standard that we have from Médiamétrie, Nielsen, GfK, or the BARB. It started, we are now measuring out-of-home viewing, for-screen viewing. Let's say the issue is that it's a bit costly and a bit time-consuming. Well, it takes long to evolve to, let's say, to be up to speed with what the advertisers are asking for. So that's why, and again, Stéphane Lorque mentioned it, the advertisers are pushing for their own solution. And the solution is putting everybody around the table, the broadcaster, but also their main competitors. I'm thinking about Google and Facebook mainly, and to work together to a new project. That's the project origin Stéphane mentioned. So it's advertiser supported, which is very positive, of course, for this kind of project because they are putting the money into the game. But, well, politically, it's hard to tackle, like getting the competitors together. And that's why we want to mention a third way, because the broadcasters are also working into their own solution to measure all their media ecosystem, all the video ecosystem that belongs to them. It's a good solution because it's going to be operational very quickly. It's very flexible. For the moment, it's not yet transversal. It's measuring one broadcaster by one broadcaster. But maybe if the framework is the same, it can evolve towards something that's really global and interesting for us.
I suggest we head back to school with Jean-Baptiste now for a quick lesson about advertising. First, a question that every advertiser should actually ask themselves before the creation of a new campaign, of course. Who are we talking to, or who should we be talking to?
Yes, Louise, the targeting question is, of course, super important when you do advertising, and especially with the improvement in precision of the targeting through the exceptional amount of digital data we have to target the consumers. But if we look at the typical, let's say, distribution of typical brand consumers, you will see that most of them actually are not the core target. They consume the brand very rarely. They are very light buyers or even non-buyers, and these are these kind of people that you don't want to miss with your advertising campaign, because they are the ones that are able to drive the bigger effects on volume. Whereas your fans, they are very engaged and they have a very nice conversion rate, but there are not a lot of people. So that's the first takeaway.
Great. Lesson 2, how do we find the balance between brand and performance?
Okay, and here I'm going to show a famous chart that's called the zigzag chart.
Okay.
So, yeah, here
big zigzags there.
Yeah, a bit zigzag. Because in a crisis time, well, your focus is to generate quick cash, quick ROI by investing in something that pays off immediately. But the problem of this performance campaign that pays off very quickly is that when they are over, well, the baseline is back to zero, like if nothing happened. Whereas the more branding campaign that have, let's say, an impact on your brand image, they have the power of lifting your baseline. The baseline is what your brand is selling without any marketing activity. And in the long term, let's say more than 6 months, we see that, well, the brand advertising is overcoming the pure performance advertising. And smart guys, Les Bynet and Peter Field, they have analyzed like more than 600 campaigns over the course of 12 years, and they actually find the sweet spot between performance and branding, which is 60% of branding and 40% of performance. So that's our takeaway.
Okay, 60 and 40. And so how do you define performance or branding channels, Jean-Baptiste?
Well, if you look at, well, the ROI of the different media channels, you will see that they are not standalone variables. They tend to evolve with the media budgets you're putting in. And a typical performance channel has a very high and very good ROI for low budget because it's based on cheap CPMs. So the payoff is very high for display or search for the moment. But the problem is, as you expand your budget, as you spend more money, these media tend to saturate. And then you have to go to branding channels, radio, video, online video, or even television that have a much higher saturation point where you can spend up to €1 million and plus. So this pattern was found out by a company called Equimetrics in France.
So is this true maybe for every sector?
Yes, it's true for every sector. This particular pattern comes from France, and it's for the banking and insurance sector. But actually, Equimetrics analyzed over the course of 6 years 150 campaigns over 5 very different sectors: automotive, beauty, food, e-commerce, and banking and insurance. And even if the numbers are slightly different, the global pattern is exactly the same.
Okay. So you talk about total video, but is there a difference between video types?
Yes, there is. And it's not me saying it. It's once again someone very intelligent from the country we love, Australia.
Black Swan country, yeah?
Yeah. It's not only kangaroos and koala, it's also very intelligent researchers.
Yeah.
This one is called Karen Nelson-Field, and she's a huge star in the advertising world at the moment because she published a survey called Not All Reach is Equal. And what she does is she's exposing people to video ads in different video platforms: Facebook, YouTube, and television. And she then measures the difference between someone exposed to an ad on a certain video platform to someone not exposed. And guess what? Television, again, has the better effect on sales.
Okay. Does video work for all media strategies?
Yes, and it's again a learning from our friends from Equimetrics and the study they conducted in France. Each particular sector and each particular advertising strategy have their own, let's say, best combination of media that will maximize the results. We call it the halo effect of television. So the automotive, for example, is a great combination of TV, radio, out of home. The banking, radio, paid search, and TV, and the beauty, social, print, and TV work well together. It's all about media synergies, but always with TV and video playing a central role in the outcome.
Okay, so now that I know that I really need video, what type of video do I need? Let's talk a little bit about content.
Yeah, we have to talk about content, and it's going to be our last lesson of the day, because media are just pipes to send content through, and the campaigns, they are only as good as they're creative. Yeah, if we look at this study from Nielsen and NCA in the US, they analyzed more than 1,200 campaigns, I think, and they see that for all sectors, the creative accounts for nearly half of the media success and the sales output of a campaign.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Jean-Baptiste. This naturally leads us on to our third part of the show, your creative content. And to talk to us now about creativity, I'd like to welcome Delphine L'Espagnol on stage with us. Delphine, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great to see you. You're International Program Analyst at Group M6. You're going to be giving us some insight on the TV video landscape for the years to come, of course. TV programs have not been exempt from the pandemic, of course. How is the COVID crisis impacting TV show production, first of all, Delphine?
During the lockdown, many shows were suspended or cancelled. COVID-friendly formats have emerged with video conference, protective windows, or without audience on the set. But in the middle of lot of repeats and lot of best-of, it's the big entertainment show are the successful programs. Such as Got Talent or Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yes. Also, new programs and live programs have been rewarded with a lot of humor and feel good. For example, Toussaint Cuisine, aired on M6 in France.
Yeah, the chef Cyril Lignac, is that correct?
Lignac, yes. He cooks in his kitchen with some celebrities and anonymous people via video conference. Lego Master on RTL 4 in Netherlands. It's a competition of Lego constructions. And because they don't know what is happening on RTL in Germany, 3 famous hosts in Germany compete on different challenges.
Okay, so from what you're saying, there's a lot of programs that have actually benefited from this really difficult context. Let's focus on Lego Masters on RTL 4. I think we should take a little look at it first, and then we'll discuss just afterwards. Take a look.
Get ready for the greatest competition ever built.
You been chosen because you're the best of the best. And I've been chosen because I'm Batman. Your next challenge is Dream Park Theme Park.
We're about to bring something you've never seen before.
No.
No!
Wow.
Holy brick.
Lego Masters, a new series being built February 5th.
Well, it looks great, actually. I can't wait to see the version in France because I'm in France. But can you tell us how exactly Lego Masters benefited from this pandemic?
Yeah, this show was at the right place at the right time. You know, Lego Masters exists all over the world, but it's the first time that record such results, more 40% or commercial target. So it's really impressive for Netherlands. And the funny thing is that at the same time, Lego sales just exploded in the country. So it's like the chicken or the egg. Still today, we don't know if the success of Lego Masters pushed Lego sales or vice versa. But the end, it shows that both the toys and the TV show respond to a wish of being together and sharing a family activity at this particular time.
I think there's a lot of us watching, a lot of you watching us today that have experienced that, of course, spending time with the family, building things together, making things together. That was, yeah, perfect. So Delphine, audience expectations is really at the heart of your job. That's what you do every day. We have to really listen attentively to what the audience wants and creatively respond to that in television. Let's talk about the second trend now that prevails this autumn. It's the guessing games.
Yes, this trend emerged 2 years ago, but really exploded earlier this year. For a few years now, broadcasters have been looking for the new format, the new big talent quest show, and it appears that Masked Singer tick all the boxes, and it was very a different show, a new show. It's more than a talent quest; it's a guessing game. You have to know that guessing games come mostly from Korea. So if you look at the original show, you can really imagine that it will become a big prime time entertainment.
You can't really imagine it. But why is that? Why can't we imagine it?
Because it's not very compliant with the Western entertainment standards.
Okay.
Fox in the US were the first Western channel to launch the format with big changes, with a lot of budget, more costume, etc. And then Fox decided to launch another Korean format. It's I Can See Your Voice.
I Can See Your Voice. Let's take a look at it and we'll talk about it afterwards.
I Can See Your Voice. A hilarious mystery music show that is performing around the world. 7 mystery singers. Who has singing talent.
Well, that's a great production from what I can see. What's the pitch of the show?
The pitch is a celebrity panel who has to find good and bad singer based only on the way look the contestants. Following the success of Masked Singer, other channels also want this format and looking their new guessing game.
Yeah, of course. So there's a lot of people that are seeing this and thinking, yeah, I'd really like to get a hold on this show, of course. You talked about Fox earlier and you were saying that it was a bit risky for Fox.
But it's really worth it because it opens doors for other formats, such as Big Performance, aired on RTL in Germany. It's a musical entertainment show in which celebrities transform into their favorite world-famous singer as Adele or Mick Jagger, with the help of an elaborate special effect mask and professional coaching to perfect their idol's facial facial expressions, gestures, singing voice, and dance routines.
Okay. And there's another show?
Yes, Game of Talents on ITV1.
I can't wait to see that.
Yes, which is to be broadcast soon. It's a Spanish show, aired on Cuatro, but soon on ITV1. It's a game show in which a contestant is paired with a celebrity as they work together to figure out the bizarre talents of 10 mystery performers.
And from what I can gather, Anton Decker on the cards for presenting the show.
Maybe.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's for now. And what about the near future? Can you tell us what we can expect to see?
Yes, it's a long-term trend. In the world of international TV program research, we are looking for the new The Voice. Maybe it's Masked Singer, we don't know yet. But many of us are also looking for the new Bake Off. The perfect mix between competition and carrying around an activity accessible to all, something kind and sweet. And once again, the pandemic reinforces the interest in this particular type of show.
I'd like us to take a little look at an advert that announced the comeback of Bake Off just before the lockdown in March, and it was really very quirky. Take a look.
I'm all out. You got any?
I wish. Come on, man, please.
How many times? No.
But I've asked everyone I know.
Listen, a friend of a friend said she managed to pick some up in Kettering, but it was the last bag.
No, and I can't make Steve's birthday without it.
It's Mum's wedding.
But it's my son's bar mitzvah.
All right, Nan.
Phew. Bake Off's back. Coming soon to Channel 4.
So you said earlier that we're looking for the new Bake Off, and what is the next Bake Off?
Because a lot of other creative hobbies are their own shows, with more or less success. Pottery, sandcastles, florists, hairdressers. During the lockdown, we could watch the fantastical factory of Curious Crafts on Channel 4 in England.
Okay, let's take a look. Go for it.
Crafters, get your craft on!
Oh no. Oops, sorry.
Just go for it.
Absolutely amazing.
It's bananas.
Am I in a dream?
And some other stuff coming up soon as well, isn't there?
Yes, it's Good with Wood. Also on Channel 4 in England, it's a contractor. Carpenters competition.
Yeah, okay, carpenters competition. And I believe there's travel shows and...
Yes, with the COVID, it's very difficult to travel, but television will learn to travel with COVID. Also to date the father of your child, to beat your favorite TV channel host. You know, the TV belongs to everybody, so everyone has a say on what they want to see.
Well, thank you so much, Delphine, for being with us and sharing all of that insight with us today. So as you can see, as Delphine was just telling us, TV shows have adapted themselves to what the audience is actually going through, and the content has evolved to suit our needs. Is it different in the advertising world, Danielle?
Louise, it absolutely isn't different, you know? Look, we're way into this presentation, and you need creativity to keep people awake. So what we do is very creative. We put a naked guy next to God. We use Michelangelo's creation of Adam, and we have me speaking over it and telling you that it's all about the consumer mindset. And that's what you need to match, nothing else, just the consumer mindset. So as I said in the beginning, one of the key successes of understanding the consumers is to look at the facts, right? So the real facts, the ones that make or break an investment decision, the ones that help the advertisers, like the fact that European consumers at the moment have more money in their pocket and more money saved than ever before. If you look at it, it is impossible at the moment to get a carpenter or somebody to fix your house because everybody is trying to get one, because they want to spend that money that they saved on other things like travel, like restaurants, like parties, like clubs, right? So the pockets are full and they're ready to spend. And it's up to the advertiser now to crack that consumer code to find out with which message, through which medium, I can address them to get that money they have in their pocket.
Thank you so much, Danielle. So to engage your consumers, you need to first listen to them. That's what we've been talking about. This is key to effective advertising, of course. And before Jean-Baptiste gives us some facts and figures to understand the consumer's mindset, let's dive into the subject a little bit deeper now with Karin Immenroth. She is Chief Data Analytics Officer of the #1 sales house in Germany, Mediengroup Group RTL Deutschland.
Big brands still need to reach big audiences. That's why advertisers benefit most from partners who offer them a range of options and opportunities. We know that it doesn't take long for brand awareness to suffer if brands take a break from advertising for too long, and that building the brand then takes a disproportionately long time. This is not only cost significantly more, but also means that yet more money has to be invested in building brand awareness. At the same time, effectiveness is becoming an increasingly important issue. And so the issues we're increasingly discussing today will remain with us going forward. Issues such as social responsibility, individuality and flexibility, and above all, the trend towards datafication will come into even sharper focus. Automation, addressability, and crucially, effectiveness. A quality environment definitely has a positive impact on advertising effectiveness. There are many studies into this, and we've often proved this impact based on analytics. We know that ads are rated much more positively and remembered much more when they appear in a high-quality context. There's also a lot of evidence that ads generate higher engagement in such environments. I've been less surprised by the strategy than by the speed, flexibility and creativity with which some advertisers responded to the pandemic. A great example is Zurich Essex Spray, a vinegar-based cleaning spray. This medium-sized company killed two birds with one stone by tailoring its advertising to the current crisis, while also giving itself a new, more youthful image and appealing to a completely new target group. Many brands have addressed the crisis in emotionally charged campaigns which have really stuck a chord with audiences. In the long term, marketers benefit from focusing on branding that appeals to feelings rather than on pure product advertising. What's more, numerous studies show that emotional advertising messages have a longer lasting effect. Therefore, I think that striking the right balance between image advertising, brand and product advertising is the key to success.
Well, thank you very much to Karin for being with us and taking the time to talk to us today. Jean-Baptiste, can you help us to understand the customer's mindset now in these very distressing times?
Yeah. After money, and effectiveness, now is the time for emotions. And as you can imagine, the consumer mindset at the moment, the mood is still quite negative. We are relying to a study by our production house, internal at RTL Fremantle, and what they found out about the consumer is that, well, emotions like frustration, anger, worriness are still at a very high level. And this negative mood calls for a change in the messages that the advertisers send. We cannot imagine continuing sending the same message as if nothing happened. So if we look at the different studies we did in different countries to, let's say, match up the consumer expectations, well, in the short term, they expect the brands to help them cope with the crisis by taking specific actions, by helping them to consume differently. Then, on, let's say, the midterm, they will ask brands to tackle some more long-term problems like sustainability, climate change, environment, showing the right initiatives to reduce the carbon footprint or educate consumers to consume in a responsible ways. And looking even further, people are relying on brands to conduct the societal change by communicating with respect, solidarity, be exemplary, and lead change. But we are not fair if we are saying that advertisers do not try to cope with these engagement expectations that the consumer have. They are doing it, they are pushing it more and more into their communication strategy, doing some new campaigns with a great engagement component. But for the moment, we can say there's a gap in perception. The consumers still do not perceive the brands to be engaged enough in these topics.
So how do we go about reducing the gap, Jean-Baptiste, to better perform?
Well, I think Karen Imenroth mentioned it in the right way. Context is doing a great job into the perception of ads, and putting your ad close to the right media content will help brands perform. Addressing the solidarity, for example, Delphine mentioned this great show on M6, Tous en Cuisine. It was giving the consumers tips to cook at home and to do their grocery shopping. So great example. During the summer, we have also seen a travel program in Germany on the public channels, just giving advice to people on how they should organize their holidays in Germany rather than abroad. It can also be solidarity on a more serious tone. For example, showing solidarity towards the medical staff. And there was a great documentary series in the UK called Britain Lifesavers, following the day-to-day life of these paramedics during the COVID crisis. So that's the first angle. Then in the longer term, what the media owners can do. Well, we have examples from the Group M6 in France or the Content Alliance in Germany, starting to address the sustainability and environment topics with special weeks across all media, television, but also print, radio, podcast, everything. And they're tackling the topic by adapting their programs. And when you survey the consumers that have been exposed to this show, they all agree that it has a very high educational value to help them change their consumption behavior in the long term. And finally, the need for modernity, the need to lead change, the social change. We are in a period of exacerbated political tension as well. And the right context can also do a good job for a brand to position itself against racism, towards gender equality, or towards diversity and inclusion.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jean-Baptiste, for all of these details. Daniel, I'd like to hand over to you. Maybe you can wrap up this session for us in a few words, because in just a few minutes we will be meeting up with MasterCard for a short roundtable talk about the future. Daniel.
First of all, thanks a lot, Louise and Jean-Baptiste, for taking us through this presentation. I'm amazed each year how much data, how much insights we gather to give guidance to advertisers in the whole industry. So great job, and definitely 12 points from Cologne for you guys in Paris. And a big shout out to Brian for telling advertisers to stay on air. That's definitely the message we want to convey today. But let's see, what is the summary of what we saw today? Well, first of all, total video consumption is accelerated by the pandemic and by the current situation. It is the dominant form of media consumption, and TV is at the core of it. Secondly, connected TV and AVOD are the growth drivers for video consumption and for video in general. Third, think long term. Invest in your brand, stay on air, build that share of voice that translates into share of market, and you will gather the fruits after this pandemic, for sure. Pinky promise. Fourth, have the right measurement and metrics in place. Know what you are spending on and know what the investment is worth. That's a core for every advertiser, and Stefan Lörke explained it to us. And fifth, above all, the consumer is first. Understanding the consumer and how the consumer works, what the consumer thinks, and how the mindset today is in the consumer head is important, because you need to find the right message, you need to find the right way and tonality to talk to that consumer that is sitting at home in front of the big screen, in front of all the little screens, and is just waiting for your message to reach out to them. So with no further ado, let's get back to a surely priceless roundtable with you, Louise, in Paris.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Like you said, let's spend the next few minutes talking about what's important, very, very important for next year. And I'd like to start with the advertisers' point of view. Let's hear a few words from Stefan Lorca.
So it's fair to say that the pandemic and the first lockdown have been a huge shock for all of our members. None of them had ever planned for such a disruption of their businesses. We have tracked 3 times since the beginning of the pandemic what the plans of our members are. And what we've seen in our latest tracking, we call it the COVID tracker, over summer, is the first green shoots. So we've seen a gradual resumption of confidence. But clearly that was before the second wave hit Europe and North America. So I think the jury is still out in terms of what the perspectives are. I think it's fair to say that companies are probably better prepared today than they were in March. They've been incredibly agile at adjusting to an unprecedented situation. I think for the majority of our members, there are going to be 2 themes which will be dominating their agenda. One is digital transformation. We have more than 80% of our members who are saying that they're in the process of building and accelerating a digital transformation agenda, which means basically refocusing the entire company around the consumer and leveraging digital platforms in order to do that. For example, in the US, the penetration of e-commerce has jumped in 3 months' time between March and June 2020, according to McKinsey. So that penetration has jumped from 16% to 33%. So we've had in 3 months' time an acceleration which we had planned would actually take 10 years to achieve. The second big theme is around brand owners' societal responsibility. There's a huge degree of expectation with respect to brand owners and their role in society. And we've seen many brand owners pivot in a spectacular manner during that pandemic and make themselves useful to society. I have a personal conviction, and that is once we are through the pandemic, we're going to be looking at the mother of all challenges, which is climate change and sustainable development. And if anything, that is going to be putting even more pressure on brand owners in order to be thinking about their societal responsibilities.
Thanks again to Stefan Lorca, who was with us just then. So this show is coming to an end, and to conclude, we're joined by Ben Jankowski, Head of Global Media at MasterCard, who's coming to us live from Philadelphia. Hello, Ben. And Stefan Koruble is, of course, with us from Luxembourg, and he's coming live too. So, Ben, I'm going to start with you. Stefan Lorca just talked about the global digital acceleration. Do you agree with what you just heard, Ben?
No, absolutely. I think the digital acceleration is going to continue to grow, and it's a combination of a lot of the things that I've heard the previous speakers talk about. It's, there are different degrees of readiness for different marketers, and in fact, different use cases, right? So in our case, Stefan talked about, and Daniel started with why consumers have all their money in their pockets because they're not flying on planes and they're not eating in restaurants, which happen to be our 2 biggest categories. Thank you very much. But the quick evolution of things like e-commerce, which have replaced, not completely, but replaced to a large degree, things like e-commerce have enabled us to be able to understand what's going on in the marketplace. So our ability to quickly respond to what's going on, and it all starts, and Daniel talked about it all starts with consumer behavior. So I think the digital transformation, I think, is going to be an important role. And I also think that we have to juggle the promise and the challenge, right? The promise of us to use digital to help us target better and help us be more contextually relevant and help us measure success better are all really, really amazing things. We also have to juggle it with kind of the risks, the challenges, right? And we know there's a lot out there in terms of fraud and viewability, and there's a lot of challenges out there to go along with the opportunities. So I think getting us ready to be able to juggle those opportunities. Karen talked about the importance of relevance and the importance of measuring the opportunity, and they're all right. It's just a lot. It's a lot being thrown at us in a really short period of time. So we have to be, as marketers, we have to be prepared for it. And I think that most of us are on that path.
Mm-hmm. We also talked a little bit about the role of responsibility and sustainability in brand strategy. What does this mean? It's good to get your feedback on this. What does this mean for MasterCard?
No, I think and Stefan made a great point. I think it's a huge part of what marketers will be doing in the future. And MasterCard, I mean, we have a legacy of being around, being socially responsible. One of the biggest things that we've done, we were a charter member of the World Food Program, of the UN World Food Program, which helped us when we had a lot of, 5-6 years ago, we had a lot of challenges in people moving around. We were instrumental in being able to put resources in people's hands. So the World Food Program is a really important part of our legacy. We've done other programs in other markets that are important. I think moving into the future, we're going to continue to do that. We've made commitments to make 1 billion people have access to financial services they didn't have before. In third world countries, I mean, the gap between opportunity and what's available is huge, and we've committed to a billion people to be to be able to experience financial inclusion. We've also committed $750 million to 2 important causes. One is how we can help balance the imbalances that currently exist with minority groups, largely in a lot of it's in the United States, but it's in other countries, and also small business. The number of small businesses that have closed down because of the pandemic is shocking, and it's sad. And so we've committed $250 million just to help drive small businesses. So social responsibility is hugely important. It's part of, it's a really big part of our culture, and it will continue to be so. And I think that the more brands appreciate and feel that responsibility, I think that we'll be in a better place, and we'll be in a better place as a business and as a world.
Okay. Let's talk about the future, 2021. Do you have any predictions or feelings about how this year is going to sort of roll out for us?
Yeah, I mean, lots of feelings, no predictions. It's hard to judge so far. I mean, I think that 2021 we are starting to see progress. Jean-Baptiste talked about the change in viewership levels. Now we're starting to balance that a little bit. Media behavior is still it's still a very, very, it still dominates, consumer behavior, right? And that's going to continue to happen. I hope that we can continue to, get a little bit of stability and a little bit of normalcy. We're all kind of counting on that. We're going through, Stefan talked about the second wave. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in North America. So, how long that's going to take, hopefully it'll be shorter because there'll be remedies. You can talk about vaccines, and I'm not, in the medical profession, but we just hope that helps us, slow down that second wave so we can kind of resume normalcy. As somebody who travels globally, my passport wonders what happened. We got into a fight. We don't understand why. I'll probably go a year without leaving my country, which is going to at least be a 25-year record. So I hope we see a little bit of more normalcy, consistency. We can start moving around. As an industry, I'd love to make progress in some of the really important industry topics that we've identified. And Jean-Baptiste talked about cross-media measurement, which is near and dear to me and a lot of marketers. And he talked about, the value of advertisers kind of pulling ourselves together. We talked about, competitors, and we think about it in a slightly different way than we used to think about it. I used to think that my, other financial services brands were my, competition, and directly they are. But when we think about driving success in the marketing world, we all have to figure out, we're going to come up with new partnerships. I don't think many many legacy TV companies have thought about how we're going to partner with digital platforms to help make progress on cross-media measurement. The mere thought of that 2 years ago would have been like, there's no way. But we have to make progress. It's really important for us to be able to understand and take advantage of all the opportunities. So I really, really hope 2021 is the year where we really make some material progress around things like cross-media measurement, things like brand safety, things like data privacy. I mean, we're really working hard as an industry to find common things, and we're not like, it's real easy to slice ourselves into pieces, and that just creates solutions that won't get to scale. So I'm really hoping that we can make a lot of progress on that front.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for taking the time to talk to us this evening.
Thank you, Lisa.
This morning for you, I guess. I'm going to head over to Stéphane Coruble. I'm coming to you. Jean-Baptiste and Stéphane Norke mentioned that the responsibility of brands is a high priority for consumers. But what does this mean for Total Video, Stéphane, and what does it mean for broadcasters as well?
Well, I definitely agree with what Stéphane or Jean-Baptiste or even Ben right now just mentioned. I personally think social responsibility and environmental responsibility is a key topic that our industry should tackle really this year. I'm giving a little bit of a sales pitch here, but revealing something. But we've been working on a cross-sector and cross-country study with our partner in France, M6, around these questions to provide more context and more knowledge about the consumer mindset and the market opportunities. And this study will be available in January 2021. In the media and in the advertising world, of course, responsibility also has another meaning. And I think reinforcing the unifying role of TV is key. Mm-hmm. TV offers and has always offered the viewers, high quality content, feel good content, entertaining content, live events, but also informative content. And for advertisers, I think it's the promise for 100% brand safe, effective, and premium advertising environments. Unlike digital players who cannot fight effectively against fake news or unsafe content, media players like us can ensure professionally made content, fact-checking journalism, and reliable information.
Mm-hmm. Stéphane, what does Total Video represent for people in their daily lives?
Well, I think this year again, and we saw it in the presentation, this year has proven once again that Total Video, TV, Total Video is a key element in people's life. During the pandemic and these particularly difficult times, it became a way for families, even youngsters, the younger generation, to come together and share an experience. And TV, at the end of the day, it's still bringing us together after all those decades.
Mm-hmm. Last question for you, Stéphane. It's the same as Ben's question. What are your feelings about 2021? What can we expect for this coming new year?
Well, first of all, I think what we have seen over the last 90 or 95 minutes, I believe the future of Total Video or TV is bright, very positive. And I would summarize the future of TV around maybe 4 major trends. The first, of course, and Ben mentioned it, it's about content. There will be more premium, brand safe, original content developed by production houses and publishers in 2020. But the content that meets specific expectations of the audience around major issues as sustainability, solidarity, modernity, positiveness in general. The second point is about creativity, and we saw that in difficult times, we see creativity being a driver for success and moving forward. So we will see more creativity in Total Video in order to reach the consumers in a subtle and an efficient way. The third trend is something that we haven't covered too much today, I would say, but we do it in the magazine, in the Total Video Key Fact. And I believe there will be more ad tech and platform initiative developed by broadcasters to simplify the access to their premium inventory and brand safe inventory, and using all digital KPIs to measure ROI and measure efficiency. I'm thinking, for example, about Planet V in the UK, D-Force in Germany, but also our own video marketplace, VMP Connect, at international level. And the fourth trend that I'm thinking is more about innovation. And there will be more innovation in our Total Video world to provide new ways of reaching consumers and to improve the relevance of ads. thanks to better data, to better targeting solutions, and addressable TV capabilities.
Well, thank you so much, Stefan, for all of this insight. I'd like to take the time to thank Ben, who joined us a few minutes ago. Thanks to Danielle, who was with us, Jean-Baptiste, who's on the set here beside me. And thank you to all the teams, of course, and all the speakers that shared such insight and such vision with us this evening. This is the end of the 27th TV Key Fact edition. You can find the complete study, of course, in the magazine that you'll be receiving very, very shortly. And also all the information is, of course, available on the TV Key Facts platform. I'm sure this gives you a lot of great food for thought. Thank you very much for watching, and it's good night from me.